The Ra Foundation was started in 2011 by a couple who really wanted to make a genuine difference to those in need in the tribal communities. Now, I'm joined by the CEO and the co-founder, Dr. Sarika Kulkarni. Welcome. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for inviting me for this.
Tell us about the inspiration behind the foundation.
So, me and my husband, both of us come from a very, very privileged background in terms of having great education opportunities. We went to some of the top universities. I did a PhD in management. My husband is an engineer and MBA from top institutes in India. And we were always having this at the back of our mind that being privileged means doing something for the underprivileged. It was always there at the back of our mind, but we didn't know where to start, how to start, etc. And we went on with our journeys in the for-profit sector. And I became a professor, faculty at a leading business school in India. And then I always had this entrepreneurship streak in me and always wanted to become an entrepreneur. Finally, when I was on my maternity leave, I got a chance to become an entrepreneur. And I said, nothing to lose. Worst, I'll go back to my job. There's nothing to lose. Finally, after 1 or 2 years, I decided that, I can be an entrepreneur, because till then I was not sure if I can be an entrepreneur. I quit my job, became a full-time entrepreneur. And then somewhere in the journey, I thought, I'm a job creator. That feeling dawned on me that this is a great opportunity to create jobs for the underprivileged youth who have dropped out of the school and who are otherwise far away from the commercial job market because, they don't have necessary skills that the market really wants. So I thought, why not use this opportunity to create opportunities for these youth? And so 3 months training program, we made it 6 months and took a batch of pilot of 10 youth, girls and boys both. And that experiment worked beautifully. Then we took another batch of 30, another cohort of 30. And finally, in next couple of years, we had almost 40% of the organization made up of underprivileged youth who the market considers not appropriate or not fit to be given a job. Yeah, and then I also realized that I was watching their entire journey from the first day they would come to my organization to becoming very confident young man or a young girl, to becoming a role model in their community, to helping their parents face the health issues that they were facing. Otherwise, there was nobody to take care of them, repairing their houses. And all this, when I saw at a very close distance, humbled me. And I realized that what I'm enjoying was chasing social return on investment rather than return on investment. And then I started yearning to just do more of this. And I think nature had nature heard me and conspired to get me out of the for-profit business. I was bought out by a large American company. And then I decided to spend the rest of my life in development sector. And that's how Ra Foundation was born. And my husband was, of course, part of the whole journey. And both of us began Ra Foundation in 2011, but we didn't know what to do. We just had passion, we just had intent, we had money, but we don't know what to do, what kind of programs to implement. So first 3 years went in self-incubation. We self-incubated ourselves, visited a lot of organizations, got mentored by a lot of people. And finally, 2014, we really found our calling in the indigenous communities living near Mumbai.
So why specifically the indigenous communities? You were talking originally about those who were underprivileged and weren't necessarily fit for the market as it's seen. But these are also geographically diverse, not near the capital cities where it's easier to get to find work.
Absolutely. So there's an interesting story actually. So I went to see a waterfall immediately after monsoon. So these indigenous areas, indigenous people, they live in tall mountains and deep valleys, and there's a beautiful waterfall which is there. So after monsoon, as a holiday, I went to see the waterfall. And on my way back, I saw the entire road dotted with women and girls walking with heavy pots on their head, which I found very ironical that there's so much water, yet why are these women walking? I found it very ironical. And somehow, the social entrepreneur inside me was very upset about the whole thing, the scenario that I saw, young, tiny girls walking with pots on their head. So I went back again and I did a research that what was the situation to understand. And then I realized that if I'm able to solve this problem, because I realized that this was not only intergenerational problem, women because the mothers were doing, the girls were doing, their daughters were doing. So it was clearly an intergenerational problem, unsolved for centuries. And also the water underpins all other social problems. So it was also becoming a very intertwined issue, because unless you solve water, you cannot solve livelihood. Unless you solve livelihood, you cannot bring them out of poverty. Unless you bring them out of poverty, you cannot address education. So, it was becoming a vicious cycle of deprivation, poverty, and water was really the entry point. So that's how we found our calling, and we designed a program around water. And here we are after 10 years. 110 villages are water secure, 60,000 people have year-round water available in their own villages. And that has then kick-started the whole virtuous cycle of growth and development.
So with taking water as a wonderful example, are you always on the lookout for entrepreneurs and visionaries and I suppose thought leaders in this space to see if there's things that you can do differently and bring that to those communities and those families that you've helped?
Absolutely. We are constantly on a lookout that how do we improve our interventions and how do we do it better, how do we get the best practices. For example, we work with some of the most underprivileged women on entrepreneurship. We develop entrepreneurship for them. It's very interesting because 90% of these women have never been to school. So how do you make a woman who cannot read or write an entrepreneur? So, so we were looking out for a solution, and then we found a solution in digital, through digital medium. We found an organization that had digital solution for this problem. So we then networked with them, we got those solutions in our area. So this is a continuous process where we are constantly hunting for solutions, customizing it. We need to customize them, you just can't adapt them. So you need to customize them. So we are constantly, that process is a continuous process.
So looking out with your vision, where do you see the foundation moving to over the next few years? Like, what would it be that you really want to achieve? What does success look like?
Yeah. So as I mentioned that, I really like to see the virtuous cycle of growth and development when we have unlocked the potential for them, because otherwise they are spending so much time in unnecessary activities. Fetching water, I think, is unnecessary. Why should a woman do that? Water should be available at her doorstep. So that is the whole vision of our foundation, that how do we break the vicious cycle and put them on a virtuous cycle. And it's called Ra Foundation. Ra is a Hindi word for path, a journey. So we want to put them on a journey and they will find their own sustainable destinations. So that's the vision. We are also signatories to the United Nations Water Charter, and as a part of that we have pledged that in next 8 years until 2030 we'll make another 100,000 community people water secure, which is another 100 villages by 2030, and then of course work on livelihood opportunities for farmers, for women, for youth, and also a large program on climate action where we are converting 15,000 acres of barren land into carbon sinks.
How are you doing that?
So we again work a lot with women. Again we are taking a gender lens here. So we create gender neutral village level committees who then take over the work of development. We train them, and we are doing plantation of indigenous plants which absorb a lot of carbon. We do a lot of soil and moisture conservation because soil is a great carbon sequestration happens in soil. So we do a lot of soil and moisture conservation and a lot of work around this so that we can absorb as much carbon from the atmosphere as possible.
That's amazing, incredible. Sarika, thank you so much for talking to us today. It's been wonderful to have you with us.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Dr. Sarika Kulkarni with us right here on the APAC Network.